Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing mobile bar and event professionals with the information they need to succeed. I'm your host, business coach, and founder of the Mobile Bar Academy, Sarah Murphy. In each episode, the Mobile Bev Pros team will bring you industry experts, information, anecdotes, and opinions with the goal of assisting you in building a profitable, sustainable, and successful business that supports you in creating wealth. I'm excited to share with you today's episode, so let's get started.
Hello again, and welcome back to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about sacrifice and values and what we hold sacred and why that is so pivotal for evolving entrepreneurs who are looking to attain new levels of success with their current business or in their next business or just in their life in general. And so this is bound to be another amazing episode. I'm super excited to dive in. It is one of my personal favorites, sacrifice and sacredness and values. It's also foundational, right? This is where we start with anything we do, whether it's my work in the metaphysical, Sarah's work in business. We start with our values, and there's a reason for that. So today we're going to tell you a little bit about it. The other thing that I would throw in here is just a little asterisk for those who love language. The word sacrifice comes from the Latin word sacrificium, and sacrificium means to make sacred. And so when we think of sacrifice, we kind of have a negative perception in our society, like sacrifice is loss. But actually, the process of sacrificing things is to elevate those things that you do value most. The process of making whatever you're sacrificing for more sacred to you. And so this is going to be absolutely awesome.
As they all are. As you mentioned before, we do the values work with all of our clients. You'll see it in the academy. You'll see it in almost every workshop we do, if not every workshop we've ever done. You see it in our accelerator. I was reading a book the other day, and the author explained that as a coach, she always starts from mission, vision, values. Us too. You have to start there because, as you mentioned, it's super foundational. No one can support you. You can't figure out where you yourself are going if you aren't sure of the foundation that's going to drive all future behaviors. And the reason being is that when you start from a place of values, it becomes a whole lot easier for you to know what's important to you so that you can sacrifice all of the things that aren't in alignment with those values. And when we see people moving through the world in a way that's out of alignment with their values, we see frustration, we see anger, we see discontentment, we see a lot of negative results that come from living outside of their value set. And they may not have awareness as to why they feel those things, but once we can establish for people or reflect back to people, these are your values, then we can build a business and a life that's in alignment with that. So we have less frustration, less anger, less discouragement, etc.
Yeah, we also see depression, low self-esteem, even to some degree, like if you feel really scattered or pulled in a million directions, all of those are going to boil down to like, are you living in alignment with your values? The other thing is that this is so important for business because when you are talking to your ideal client, when you are setting up your messaging and your brand story, the lore of your business, you have to be able to clearly communicate your values. And so if you are a Democrat, then you are more likely going to resonate with other Democratic supporting businesses. If you're a Republican, if you're a Christian, if you're a Catholic, if it's really important to you to recycle, if you are green, right? If you're vegan, like all of these things are values that people have that when they see them reflected in the world, they're more attracted to those brands. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to start a mobile bar with a white rig and I want to be at every single event. Well, the problem there is that no one knows who you are. They don't know what you stand for. And if you think about, like, if you were to go to Barnes and Noble and there was just a white book on a shelf and it didn't have anything in it, and you open that white book and it's just blank pages, what is this book about? Right? Like, who is it for? It's for nobody. And so what are the chances? Now you have a notebook, right? I just thought about that. I like literally described a notebook, but at that stage, that's not a book that's going to be a bestseller. It might be a great notebook, but that's it. And even notebooks, I like my notebooks to be pretty and be representative of my current mood. You know what I mean? And so just a white book with nothing in it, that's the equivalent of moving through business and moving through life without being really sure of what your values are.
On that same note, I can't even count on one hand how many times I've read a bestseller and absolutely hated it. And that's just because the person who wrote that bestseller wrote it for a very specific demographic with a very specific value set, right? So just because it's a bestseller doesn't mean it's for everybody. That means the exact opposite. It means a bestseller means it was for a lot of people that held similar value sets, but that means that there's a lot of people who don't hold those value sets. And so we do a lot of work with our clients around identifying their values, because as much as like we all have them, most people have very little awareness as to what their values are, which in my opinion is why so many people, to your point, walk around in the world feeling scattered, feeling like they don't have discipline or motivation to do things in the world. They're not sure what they want to do or what will make them happy. They have lack of clarity around their purpose, right? And all of this work that we're talking about here for the listeners, this is top of mind for us for a couple of reasons. One, we work with these concepts every day within Mobile Bev Pros, but two, this is the foundational work that we're doing within the new time bending container that we're launching and releasing, in that our goal with that container is to not only bring clarity around people's value set so that we can help them identify what they hold sacred and what things need to be sacrificed, but because the end result of that container is freedom and fulfillment. That only happens through the forges of sacrifice in the name of what you hold sacred. So today, some of the things, other than bringing awareness as to why values are important and what values are, we also were hoping to talk about why these things help with freedom and fulfillment in life. The first one that I think is pretty evident, so I'll start there, is prioritization. When you know what your values are and what you hold sacred, it is very easy to quickly identify the activities, the relationships that matter, the goals that you have or that you would like to have. And this enables really swift decision making about where to invest your time and your energy. I've been using this concept that I read in a book recently that just referenced kind of casually that most people are out there taking 20 steps in all directions. But real progress happens when you take those same 20 steps in the same direction. And I love that, because how many people are out here feeling like I'm multi-passionate? And there's nothing wrong with being multi-passionate, but can we be multi-passionate at different times, right? Instead of today I'm going to do this and tomorrow I'm going to do that. And, I don't have a morning routine. Every day I kind of wake up and just wing it. I'm not very organized. I don't really know what I need to be working on at any given time. These are all symptoms of the fact that you're taking 20 steps in lots of directions instead of 20 steps in a single direction. And knowing what your values are and what you hold sacred is the first step in identifying what should be prioritized and what are things that are just not important and not worth spending the time and the energy on. This actually brings up another thing that came up recently, and it's someone who's mentioned to me they really wanted to join the accelerator program, but that they know it's going to be a lot of work, and that you and I always talk about how much work it's going to be. And so they want to wait until the off season. And that really shocked me, because I told her, you're already doing a lot of work. We're not piling more work on top of the massive amounts of work that you're already doing. We're just clarifying the work that's going to move the needle. We're just helping you recognize that a lot of what you're doing is probably busy work, and you're walking around being busy all the time, but you're not getting very far. So we just help clarify the work that's actually going to move you forward.
When people run through the values exercise at the very beginning of like literally everything that you do with people, if they haven't identified their values, you have them run through the values exercise. And it's basically like a big sheet of paper with like 4 or 5 columns on it. And each column has like 50 different words that could be values, because a lot of people don't know where to start when defining their values. And the first time we ran through it, we learned something, because people had like 30 values. As they're going through this, they're like, sure, I value happiness and friendship and honesty. And they just go da 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 da, like, I value all these things. And like how we help people get really clear, because to your point, if you don't have clarity, you can't prioritize properly, and you don't move in such a way that like you're precise about your aim, right? You're precise about your purpose. We want to get you really clear. And the way that we do that is by telling them they need to have 3 to 5. You as a person and you as a business need to have 3 to 5. Now, ideally, you want them to be the same. You don't want like one of your values to be all organic ingredients in your life, and then you're using red dye 40 in your business, right? Like you want to find the synthesis there, but they can be slightly different. But you want to pick 3 to 5 values, core values, and those are hills that you are willing to die on. They're not just like, oh, it's nice when people are honest. No, if I have a $25,000 client in front of me and they're being dishonest about something, am I going to say it's a no for us? If the answer is no, I'm absolutely going to say yes because it's 25 grand and I don't care if they lie to me or not. Then that's not a value for you.
I always say that a value is a hill you will die on. And if you're not showing up in your business in a way that enforces that, then it's not a value. So if transparency is a value for you, but then someone asks you for a line item receipt or an invoice, and you're like, I'm not going to break down my pricing that way, then transparency isn't a value for you. You're not showing up in your business that way. When we went out to Colorado and we did the workshop there, we had a number of the mobile bar owners there say that one of their values is diversity. And so then I asked them to look at their staff. Are you practicing diversity in your staff? Are you putting on your website that you value diversity? And are you making it known to the public that one of your values is diversity? And because of that, your business shows up in these following ways. And I think when you walk the walk, when you're willing to sacrifice everything at the feet of that value, that's how you know it's a value. It's not just a buzzword.
Yeah, what am I willing to sacrifice absolutely everything for? For example, one of the core things that I look for in my containers is, are you sacrificing money for your values, or are you sacrificing your values for money? And we call that dirty money, right? And so if you value freedom and fulfillment and you're tied to a 40-hour work week, then you are out of alignment with your values. And so that money isn't going to be rewarding. The second thing that brings up for me is the fact that you are sacrificing everything. All day long, you're making sacrifice. All day, right? If you wake up and you have a cup of coffee instead of a cup of water, you sacrificed water, right? If you take a shower instead of watching TV, you sacrifice TV. If you go for a run instead of sitting on the couch, then you're sacrificing time on the couch. Sacrifice doesn't have to be this negative thing. It's a very positive thing, but it has to be intentional because you're using this power every single day to form your current reality. We just want to get you in the time bending container really honed in, super accurate, super precise on where it is you want to go and what's going to be required for you to sacrifice in order to get there. And sacrifice isn't a scary thing because you're doing it all the time anyway. Are you doing it with intent, or is it unconscious for you?
Right. Sacrifice in the name of your greater purpose and in the name of your values feels good. It feels good. It doesn't feel like a punishment. It feels like I'm out here doing my work in the world. Or one of the other things that being in alignment with your values and knowing what they are helps with is enhanced motivation. We oftentimes will hear people say, oh, I just couldn't get myself to do this thing, or, whatever that looks like. And there's always going to be those things in life that you have to do because we live in a society that has expectations. So taxes, hate paying them, gotta do it, right? There will always be those things. But the more time that you can spend doing things that progress your purpose, the more you will feel motivated to show up for yourself every day. I deeply believe, I know that a lot of people that people are lazy these days, and if they could just sit on the couch all day, they would. I don't believe that. I think people want to utilize their time to do good work, whatever that good work looks like for them. People want to do work in the world that they find valuable.
And if you get to the end of the week and you're like, oh my God, it's Saturday, which for you guys, probably Saturday is a pretty busy day, but like maybe it's Monday. You have a moment to like relax and you're like, oh God, finally, right? That tells me that the work that you're doing is out of alignment, because in stark opposition, I love the fucking work that I do. And this weekend, I had a long weekend and nothing to do because MVP was closed on Monday. And like, I just chilled with my family, and I love to chill with my family, but I was itching. I was like, man, if there was like a podcast I could edit or a blog post I could write, and I have to intentionally create space to not keep doing the work that I love all the time, right? And that's how you know that you're living in alignment with your values, because you're excited, to your point, motivated to do that work. You'd almost rather be doing that work. For me, study and research and like expanding my mind is a deeply ingrained value for me. And I will sacrifice everything for a good book about psychology. I could just eat Carl Jung with a spoon, like whipped cream on the top. I love psychology and I love the unconscious and I love metaphysics. And if you locked me in a jail cell with 100 books on those topics, I would be happy as a clam. Like I would just be so excited. That's how you know you're in alignment with your values, because the work that you're doing is filling you up rather than depleting you.
On this note, I feel like it's important to talk a little bit about this concept of do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And that feels very unattainable to a lot of people because they feel like what they love has to be turned into a business and then they no longer love it. And so I want to caveat or put like a little pin in that concept. That's not what we're preaching at all. What we are preaching is that if you have a business and you don't love it, why bother? When people start a business, it will be most successful when it enables, you have to spend a ton of time, energy, money, resources building this thing. And how many times have you and I found people who've done all of that, and then 3 years in, 4 years in, they look at their business and say, I fucking hate this. I don't like doing this work. I dread every time an inquiry comes in because now I have to go and do the work for the business that I built, right? That happens when you build a business out of alignment with your values. It doesn't mean that we're preaching turn every hobby you have into a business because that's the only way that you're going to love your business. I very much don't believe that you should do that. I think if you work a 9 to 5 and you have art as a hobby and you don't feel like you want to turn that into a business, spend as much time doing art as you can. Here's where I think we really fail the greater society. I'm stepping outside of the mobile bar world a little bit. In that when we first send our little youngins off to work and they get their first jobs, what we're not doing as leaders in the greater community is pointing them towards the things that they're really good at. And actually, I had this conversation with my one-on-one coaching client yesterday. She was really triggered by a text message that she got from one of her clients. And it literally just said, do you have 5 to 10 minutes to chat? And she immediately spiraled. She's like texting him, like, what do you need? Like, what happened? Like, and she's in Voxer with me. And she's like, how rude of him to just drop this. And then like, now I need to like talk to him today about what this is, or I'm not gonna be able to sleep at night. And I said, why is this happening? What happened here? And we were able to work back to the fact that all these years ago, when she was 22 years old, she was brought into an office by her manager at the time and absolutely berated and fired. She's like, I'm actually not even sure entirely what I did wrong, but it was something, right? A lot of us have those stories. I have those stories. What could have happened, which is how you and I managed people ultimately in our careers, was they could have sat down with her and said, Susan, these are the things you're really good at. These are the things that you're really struggling with, even though we've tried to kind of get you a little bit better. These are things that you just have a natural tendency to be really excellent at. Why don't we try and find you something where you can spend more time doing those things, right? And then over time, with every job that these younger kids have, they get closer and closer to the things that they're inherently good at, the things that light them up and make them excited to do that work. And then not everyone needs to be an entrepreneur because there are actual real jobs in the world. You love working with Mobile Bev Pros. It's a real job in the world that really feed their strengths and allow them to create mastery in areas that they are really good at. And so I don't want to demonize 9 to 5s because I think when done well, people can thrive in them. And so if you're like, I hate my job, it's possible that you just hate that job, that you could still do great work in the world within the confines and the bounds of a 9 to 5. And there's a lot of perks to 9 to 5s. This podcast obviously is very much geared towards entrepreneurs. You've ventured out on your own for your own reasons. Maybe it's because you hated your 9 to 5, or maybe it's because you want personal wealth that isn't capped at your annual salary. Maybe it's because you have a vision of creating this big impact in the world with your business, and that looks like a mobile bar. But if you're going to do that and it's going to be successful and not a prison in a few years, then we need it to be in alignment with your values, because that's when we can really start to thrive. And you had mentioned a little bit earlier about how you have to create space with MVP because you just love doing the work, but you also have like loved ones and a family and all of these other things that you want to do. That enables you to create aligned boundaries. When you are in alignment with your values and you're doing work, you can create boundaries from a place of love. And it becomes very easy to say no to things that aren't in alignment with those values, because you're like, I need more time and space for this thing that I love to do, and that I'm creating space to do more of. And so we see oftentimes people who struggle with boundaries. They say yes to things that they shouldn't. They take on work that doesn't add value, that doesn't progress their overall goals. They feel resentful of relationships that they hold because they feel like they have to. And all of those things are time and energy spent not focusing on the things that will create freedom and fulfillment.
I remember having a conversation with my husband many years ago. I had all but like shut myself off from the world to study psychology and alchemy. And I used to share with him all the time all the things that I was learning. And he likes video games and he likes action movies and he has his things, right? And so when I was sharing them with him, he like never really had anything to contribute. And like, how could he? He wasn't spending hours and hours studying psychology. So like, I can't speak to you on this. And I remember having a conversation with him where he told me that he could not be my village and that I needed to find my tribe. And first of all, I was like really hurt by that. But I was only hurt by it because it landed. It was true for me. I needed to go find my tribe and talk with people who valued deep psychology and alchemy and the laws of the universe. And so I say that to let people know you are multifaceted and you're not going to create one thing that fills up every aspect of you. So, for example, in my own business where I coach on deep psychology and alchemy and metaphysics, that doesn't have a lot of the structure and activity, like daily activity that I absolutely love and that fills my cup. MBP gives me that structure and that activity that I can like look at and say like, I'm fulfilled here in this area of my life. It's potentially more masculine, right? MBP gives me more masculine fulfillment. And then my own business, my own work in the world gives me a more feminine fulfillment, right? And so that's holistic. And so instead of pigeonholing myself and trying to give everything that I am to my husband. Now I have friends in the world who have a deep appreciation of my skill sets and of what I love and what I'm passionate about. And that doesn't mean that I had to leave Harley, right? When I fall in love with my own work, it doesn't mean I have to leave MVP. And when I fall in love with MVP, it doesn't mean I can't do my own work. You can find a way, a holistic approach to your values and not have to like pigeonhole it and put all that pressure on your business. And to your point, like people want to create art or they want to be crafty. They feel like their hobby has to pay the bills. That's that attempt to like pigeonhole, to like put it all together. You're multifaceted. You need time off and time away. And then you need time on and time in. And then you need to pull back and circle around, right? Like give yourself space and give yourself different facets of expression in alignment with your values so that you can be holistically fulfilled in your relationships, in your body, in your work in the world, whether that's multiple works in the world or just one, right? You don't just like wake up and like vacuum the house and that's all the cleaning you have to do. Eventually, your countertops need cleaned too, right? And so you have to go to different places and perform different tasks to have a whole home that is clean. And that's what we want for you. You get clear on your values, and then your values can lead you into these multifaceted aspects of yourself that you can start to create to fill your cup in different ways.
Absolutely. And if people are like, okay, this is great, I get it, but how does this have to do with time bending? So there's Chronos and Kairos. And this is the Greek terms for the two types of time. Chronos is like the seconds, the minutes, the hours, right? Kairos is the quality of the time. You only have one life, they say, right? So live it well. And so when we can live in alignment with our values, doing things that we love, the quality of the time that we're spending increases. It also tends to have a time bending effect because when you do what you love, time passes quicker, right? Like you're like, oh my gosh, I thought it was 15 minutes, but I've been doing this for 3 hours, right? Imagine if you lived a life where you just every moment had in some way, shape, or form some level of satisfaction. That's a life well lived. And that's ultimately our goal with the time bending container, is offering people the opportunity to see that as possible for themselves. It will be a process. I wouldn't say it would be more work. It's not going to feel like more work, that's for sure. It's going to be more aligned work if freedom and fulfillment is actually your goal. I think that oftentimes as entrepreneurs that we're seeking freedom and we think once we make a certain amount of money, we will be there. And that's just not true. Any successful entrepreneur, you can walk up and ask, you make all this money, are you finally free? And they'll probably say no, right? Because money alone is not what creates freedom. And if you ask them, now you have all this money, and if they do have freedom, if they're fulfilled, that might be a totally different answer too. Because just because you have time freedom, and you and I have talked about this, you and I have time freedom. And in many cases, we have financial freedom, intellectual freedom, and we have lots of versions of freedom. Fulfillment wasn't achieved just by having those things. Fulfillment means our actions and what we do when we show up every day, the work we do in the world, is inching us toward a greater goal and our greater purpose. That's when you hit fulfillment. It's when the work you're doing in the world is going towards your greater purpose. And obviously that has to be in alignment with your values.
If you're moving through the world and feeling like you just don't have enough time, there's never enough time. You don't have time for self-care. You don't have time for rest. You don't have time to journal in the mornings. You're just rushing all the time, caffeinating to like make things move fast, make your whole body and your whole existence move at the speed of light. That is an indicator that you're not fulfilled, because a fulfilled person, a person with true freedom within, is going to move gracefully with a fluidity. It's like when you go to the river, like go sit by the river, go sit by the ocean. That water isn't rushing. Now, maybe it's like making a rushing noise. Maybe some places it's moving faster and some places it's moving slower, but it's not like on a clock. It's not like I got somewhere to be tonight. It's literally just moving fluidly from one space to another with immense grace. And it's not like I got to hurry up and carve these rocks on the side of the riverbed. That just happens. This is a byproduct of it just moving naturally through the world. And that's available to you. And you start to align your boundaries in your business and in your personal life to support that. But also, to your point, it's pulling you toward that future version of yourself. It's pulling you toward that long-term vision. And because you now are more efficient in your decision making, you're not in internal warfare all the time, right? You're not like attempting to segment your life like, oh, over here, I'm this kind of business owner. And then at home, I'm this kind of mom. And then you're just like clashing, like part of you wants to be a great mom, part of you wants to be a great business owner, and you're making those two things conflict. Instead, you recognize you have plenty of time. What would it be like in your business, in your life, if you moved with a grace and an ease that came from, I have an abundance of time? Because what we're talking about here is the difference between time scarcity and time abundance. That's how we collapse and expand time. I have plenty of time, right? At that point, you're not pitting aspects of yourself against other aspects of yourself. Because a lot of you might be listening to this and be thinking like, I really wish I had time to crochet. I wish I had time to be creative and journal. I wish I had time to go to the gym. The truth is you do have time, but you're not prioritizing that because you've not sat down and really looked at your values and what you're willing to sacrifice for it. Now, potentially you're not willing to sacrifice for the gym. Okay, fall in love with your very soft body. You know what I mean? Like then make that a value, sacrifice for that. And so we can reduce internal conflict by getting you aligned with your values and getting you intentionally sacrificing and for a purpose.
Before this call, you and I were speaking about the fundamentals, the foundations. And today we decided to talk about values. And you just talked about moving through the world with grace And one of the other foundational pieces of this, and I don't know that it warrants an entire podcast, so I'm going to mention it here. It's confidence. The water does not have to be anything but the water. And you and I work almost entirely some days on being confidence coaches, to just enable people to see that they are capable, and then they could just make a decision confidently. They can just move and take action confidently, that they don't need to be frozen in analysis paralysis, because what if what I do is wrong, and what if it fails, and what if all of these things. You only gain confidence through action, but we also need confidence to act. And so it's a bit of a Ouroboros there, right? The snake eating its tail, but it's such an important piece of this. The work that we're trying to do with this time pending container is to give people the confidence to move towards their purpose and what they find fulfilling, in spite of what society says, in spite of what they were told they should do, in spite of the fact that they bought this program, they listened to this coach, and this was the way that they said that it needed to be done, myself included. I'm the first one to tell people, like, hey, this is how I do it. But if that doesn't work for you, then don't do it. Right. I mean, I don't care much for social media, but if that you feel like that's an important part of your process, then like by all means go for it. Right. Like there's not one way to skin any cat. I just want you to really own it. I want you to own that this is what you want, and everything else will fall to the fires of the altar in order to get it and to move confidently in that direction. And then if you're listening to this, I want you to really put that feeling in your body. What would it feel like to be confident every day? What would it feel like if you understood that like the work that you're doing in the world is inching you towards a true purpose? How would that change the way that you moved in the world? Would you be more like water? Right? Would you be able to gracefully slide from one moment to the next, knowing that every step is in the direction of where you're hoping to go with your life? Like if you can feel that in your body, and that feels like a relief and something that you would really love to have on a more continuous basis, we have something for you.
I want to circle back to sacrificing our values for money, because it just came up again for me. And I don't want to understate this. If you are doing work in the world right now that is draining you and that you hate and that you wish you had an out for, but you're doing it to pay the bills, you have options. I know you probably feel stuck. I know you probably feel conflicted internally between what you want and real world bills that are coming in every month. I understand that there's probably some conflict, but I want you to know that when you start sacrificing for your values, you will make more money. Like your abundance of time, of money, of fulfillment, all of those things increase. Your abundance of confidence, right? Your ability to master a thing, all of that increases. And that sometimes feels really scary for people, because as a society, we've just been taught that you sacrifice who you are for the almighty dollar. You sacrifice everything you want for the almighty dollar. I was raised in poverty. I went to public school. And in public school, like, you do what you're told for a set number of hours, and there's no escape. You have to sit here in this locked box for this, at this desk. You have to sit still for this many hours. And that's why each of you that's listening to this feels stuck, because we stuck you in a box and we locked the door and told you to sit still and pay attention to some old person drone on and on about a subject you don't give a shit about. You know what I mean? What we're not telling you to do is just be like willy-nilly out here living your values, just a homeless person, not paying your bills. That's not what we're saying. But we are saying that there is a place for you. There's a place for your genius to be expressed. And maybe it's not in your current world. My husband said, I can't be your whole village. We're telling you that there is a place for you. Maybe you don't have it yet. Maybe you're not even sure that it exists. But there's a disconnect between what you're doing every day and your fulfillment and your freedom. And that disconnect, that internal conflict, is causing you to feel stuck and alone. And we see you. we can help you bend time and bend reality in such a way that you can start doing more fulfilling work, even within the business you currently have, but potentially you want to pivot altogether. We can support you with that as well. And we can be the people who see you. We can be your tribe. We can hold you in your highest light and support you in bringing your genius and your brilliance to the world in a way that aligns with your values, lessens that internal conflict, and unlocks that box because you're not stuck. I know that you feel stuck, but you're not stuck.
I just finished this book called Stolen Focus. It's freaking amazing. But he, at one point in the book, talks about children in school and how they did an experiment and they gave kids a free play day, tons of toys, options to do whatever they want. And this is relevant because this is what we're basically giving people the opportunity, or we're basically showing people that there is a world out there where they can do whatever they want, whatever it is that's in alignment with their values, they can do that. All of these kids walk in one day, free play, whatever you want to do today, we will support you in that. You want to build, you want to write, you want to sing, you want to do whatever, go for it, dance, whatever. Kids were absolutely confused. They had no idea how to self-lead themselves in play because they'd been told how, like, they come in, they do what they're told, and now they had no structure whatsoever. One kid curled up in the corner and just went to sleep because he was so overwhelmed with like not knowing how to work. I see that in entrepreneurs. I see that they're striving for structure. They leave their 9 to 5 and then they build businesses that look just like their 9 to 5. They left their 40-hour-a-week job to work 80 hours a week. And those that are loving every moment of it, great. You're working 80 hours towards your purpose, amazing. But then we have the people working 80 hours a week. They're burnt out. They resent their business. They're stuck. They're not sure where to go from where they are because they've been dropped into a room and told that they can do anything that they want. And they're paralyzed. They don't know what to do because they don't know what they want, because they don't know what they value.
Yeah, and this starts over at every new level, unfortunately, like, because you and I were really sure. And then now you and I too, that's the other thing, right? Is like kind of like Inception, time bending is before us because it's also for us. And so we're going to support you in these principles while Sarah and I are also walking this path to whatever is opening up on this next level of us. Every new opportunity that you have, that's why people retreat to their comfort zones, because they just know what's expected. They know what to do. The unknown, I had a coach once that defined it as being in a room, except there was no lights, no other people, no ceiling, no floor, and no walls. And you're just sort of floating in the void. And that's what every new venture feels like. The possibilities are endless. And so we don't know, even like, is there a stepping stone? Like, can I get, if there's nothing in this room and the room doesn't exist, like what next? Right. And so you will be confronted by this discomfort, this exact discomfort, this disorientation, if you will, at every new level of you. And so your mobile bar right now, even though it's draining you, maybe it's not, maybe you love it, but maybe it's draining you. And you're like, I want this next iteration. But the mobile bar is known. And so we stay there because that next version is the kid curling up in the corner because he doesn't know what to do. And you felt that way probably when you made the jump from whatever you were doing into your mobile bar, right? And you're going to feel it again after you do this next thing, and then you move on to the next thing. It's always going to feel that way. And so just recognize that's part of the process, but you are still safe. Scarcity will tell you that it's not safe. Scarcity is telling you it's not safe for you to venture out and do fulfillment bullshit because you're not going to be able to pay your bills. You don't have enough time for that. And that's not true. That voice in your head is lying to you to keep you in a locked box because that box is known. It's a known structure to you. We can help support you as we move through this strange liminal area where, you know, it makes me think of the Never-Ending Story where the bog eats the horse. You know, like we all have trauma there, but like he had to move through that strange, like swampy land before he could move on to the next thing. That's what this feels like, is like, it's going to eat my horse trailer. And it might.
It might. New level, new devil, right? And to your point, we use our own tools. We are constantly leveling up ourselves, and we use these tools to guide us through that process so that we stay in alignment with our values and we continue marching on towards our purpose, which keeps us fulfilled.
So if you would like to learn to become a master timekeeper, you want to be able to bend time, expand it, and collapse it at will. This container is very intimate. It is a 1-to-2 container. And so it's one person is going to get all eyes, Sarah's eyes, my eyes, on their business, on their body, on their relationships, on how they move through the world from a holistic lens so that they can be supported in creating whatever their genius really desires at that next level. And so if you have a burning desire within you and you feel totally fucking lost, this is the container for you. And so with that, I'm going to drop the link for you guys to sign up if you're interested in this container. At that point, Sarah and I will reach out to have you fill out an application and schedule a 1-to-2 call with us so we can extract from you what it is that you're seeking, where you're stuck, and if we can even be of support for you. And so those are going to be the next stages for this container. You can also email us directly at hello@mobilebevpros.com if you're interested in this container, if you have questions about what it entails, or even if this episode just like really lands for you and you want to let us know that like, I'm here. I see you guys see me. I'm here. We would love to hear from you. And so another awesome episode. Sarah, thanks so much for having me on. We'll talk to you guys next time.
And that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was valuable. I would love to hear from you what you thought. You can drop me a line at hello@mobilebevpros.com or find me on Instagram at mobilebevpros. If you're looking for more valuable mobile bar related content, we have a website full of it. You can find us at www.mobilebevpros.com. And I'd love to see you in our Facebook community, also by the name of, you guessed it, Mobile Bev Pros. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, cheers.